Hey everyone, my name's Andy. I'm from the Finding Value Finance channel. Today, I also have another Andrew or Andy with us. We used to hang out every once in a while. We used to work together and go to the gym together and all that stuff. So we had a discussion before. He was into crypto massively back some years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago or longer. And last time we were talking about Bitcoin, we were talking about some of these other cryptos, and I brought up Michael Saylor, and he was like, "Let me dig into Michael Saylor. Let me see who this guy is." He seems to be the I don't know the godfather of a lot of these people, leading everyone down. I don't know the path to. I mean, it could be the path to zero. I have no idea where it's going to end up going, but he's definitely a person where even I've heard him say like you should sell or you should get a second mortgage on your house and buy as much
Mm,
Bitcoin with it as possible. And I would never recommend doing that. I can't believe he even said that. But so you looked into Michael Saylor. What are some things you want to
yep.
share about it? And the reason this all came about is because everyone is pushing crypto and Bitcoin, and Michael Saylor seems to be the leader. So I think Andrew got interested in figuring out, who is this guy? What's
Yeah.
he about? And how he entered the Bitcoin position. Is he up on his position? Is he down? A little bit about that. So what kind of made you dive into researching Michael Saylor, and what kind of what would you find?
Yeah. So what made me dive into him was that at least back in 2017, when I was more into crypto, he wasn't a household name. I don't even know if he was a name in the forums, in the crypto sphere, in Bitcoin, or anything like that. I've never even heard of him. It wasn't until he started showing up on different podcasts because he's got a huge brand now. He is a brand. His name is a brand. So if I go on YouTube right now and I look up Michael Saylor interview, he's been on London Real. He's been on that guy named Lex. He's been on Patrick Bet David. He's been on Anthony Pompliano. He's been on a lot, CNBC. Oh, Lex Fredman. That's who I'm thinking of. These are big. The only thing I haven't found is if he's been on Joe Rogan. That's because Joe Rogan's not on YouTube anymore, I think. He's
He
on
has, I think,
Spotify. But he's
he's been
probably
on
been
it.
on Joe. Oh, he has? So
Yeah,
think about it.
I
This
think so.
guy has a reach further than anyone else in the world as it relates to Bitcoin news, except for maybe Sam Bankford Freed or whatever.
Yeah,
But he's kind of a
Freeman or
dead name now. Yeah,
Friedman. Yep.
he's dead name. By the way, I have friends that have lost money in FTX because of that. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Um, so I did some research into him because I was like, this guy wasn't a name 5 years ago. Why is he a name now? And the background is that he's a hedge fund guy who 2 years ago, I would say, was the first hedge fund to really go big on Bitcoin, to have open up a huge long position. And it was in August of 2020. He put about $250 million into Bitcoin. Now, when you think of August of 2020, before Bitcoin even hits 10K, that's a huge bet. 200, a $250 million when you're a small hedge fund guy and you put it into Bitcoin. So of course he makes the news. Bitcoin goes to 70K and he looks like the smartest guy in the world, right? So we've been in a bear market for Bitcoin, a really bad one. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to listen to one full podcast of his, and I want it to be the most recent podcast that he's been on. So I didn't want something from a year ago on Joe Rogan or 2 years ago from Joe Rogan or anything. I want the most recent one. So I found it on YouTube. It was with London Real. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I know we've been having audio issues, so we can't play the clip, but I will share the screen so that the viewers can see um, which video I'm talking about. Let me know when you can see it.
Yep, can see it.
So if you want this video, it's on London Real, 2 million subscribers, right? Huge reach. Michael Saylor, Bitcoin Crash in the Future, part 1 of 2, just go to around 1350. And now I'm going to go ahead and read you the quote from this video. So he says at around 1430, he says, and he's talking, Michael Saylor is talking, I track the financial market since we embarked on our Bitcoin strategy. Here's what has happened since August 10th of 2020. Bitcoin is up 65%. MicroStrategy stock is up. MicroStrategy bought almost $4 billion of Bitcoin. So the stock MicroStrategy stock is up 66%. The S&P is up 14%. The Nasdaq is up 4%. Whoa. All of big tech is only up 4%. Gold is down 18% and bonds is down 18%. The interviewer goes, oof, right? He's like buying into that narrative. And then he continues and says, in terms of asset classes, the crazy volatile Bitcoin is the safest of those assets. And then after that, he then gives details about how the top 10 tech stocks are also down, or at least they're not up that much, and how they have underperformed compared to Bitcoin. So again, he's bragging about a 65% return on investment when on the same time frame, everything else loses, including the S&P 500 and including gold. So Andy, I heard that, and I got a little. I'm gonna go ahead and stop share. I got a little curious about that because I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Bitcoin was, something like 10 grand back then, and now it's still floating around 17 grand. That's like a 70% ROI. So I'm like, okay, he's not lying. And then I was like, well, that's not necessarily true because I was like, he made one buy position in August of 2020. So then I thought, let me see what else he did throughout those 2 years. Because he said he's invested $4 billion into Bitcoin. His first investment was 250 million. That's another $3.75 billion that he's not talking about. So I did what every good investor does. I did my due diligence. And what I found was something kind of terrifying. Terrifying enough that I'm willing to say that I think Michael Saylor is a fraud and a charlatan. Because if he truly tracks the financial market, Andy, he would know his position, right? I mean, don't you know yours? I mean, I know mine. I know where my break-even point is. So so I'm going to kick it back to you. I think I showed you the spreadsheet, but what are your thoughts on pinpointing one position and bragging about that one position and not talking about the rest of your positions? What does that say about you as a personality or as a person that's trying to get people to buy in a segment?
Well, the only thing I'll say is I'm not bought into crypto, so I don't really. I think a lot of people in crypto, and this is, I'm not going to try to attack any individual. I'm just saying people who are in crypto, I don't. I'm on a different wavelength. I'll just say that I'm on a different wavelength. And Michael Saylor, he's on a different wavelength. Half the stuff that he says, I have no idea what he's talking about, and it's not because it's over my head. He says a claim and it just doesn't make sense. So one of the claims could be Bitcoin. What does he always say? Bitcoin is some sort of like built up energy or stored energy.
Encrypted energy wall or something like that.
Yes, he says stuff like this, and I'm just like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. How are people buying this? And then he'll say something else like economic energy, all this other things. I'm like, he goes on and on and on and on. I'm like, yeah, it is to some extent, but it's not. Money is not economic energy. Money is it's a future claim on something that could potentially be made from energy, but it's not necessarily. I mean, you could go back and forth. You could do all this argument on some of the stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I listen to him. He sounds well put together, and he's got some legit analogies. I'll just say that.
Right.
But some of the other things he mixes in there, I disagree with.
So I just want to make a quick point. I found when he said to take out a second mortgage, and I found an article right here. He said that in March of 2021, if you took out your second mortgage and invested 1,000 into Bitcoin, you'd be down 62%.
Yeah, he said that. He said it close to the top because he said something about a second mortgage. It was back in 2021, and it was real close to the top that I can remember. And I'm just like, I was like, why is this guy doing this? I mean, just to give you a background about him a little bit. I mean, he lost all his money in the tech bubble in the 2000s tech bubble. He got absolutely just bankrupt, like done. And I see him come back, and I'm like, this guy can sniff out bubbles. Like, he is a bubble boy, in my opinion. But
yeah, that's a good point.
He knows when to get in at the wrong time.
Hey, so when he gets into uranium, that's what I'm going to sell.
But he is. That's my impression on him, and I don't really have anything else. Like, I'll listen to his arguments. I just don't. Some of them, I don't even know. I don't even have a response.
So, right. So
It's
we
so
can,
ridiculous.
well, you know just as well as me that it's hard to have a detailed, almost like discussion with a Bitcoin evangelist or a crypto believer in terms of the tech, because we kind of see the tech differently and we argue differently. It's hard to have that discussion. That's why I wanted to go straight to the facts and just track the numbers. So that's what I'm going to present right now. Um, and again, I don't want this just to be all about Bitcoin hate and that kind of stuff. I actually want to show why I'm proud of the spreadsheet and the not the education or the education it can provide and the due diligence that I did. So can you see this?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. So I went ahead and I built
Can you
multiple
zoom in a little
sheets.
bit?
Sure.
Yep. Just zoom way in, even if you can't see all of it in one shot. Yeah.
Is that pretty good?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. So I went ahead and I decided, okay, all these, so here are your dates of when MicroStrategy made purchases. This is the price of Bitcoin on those dates. This, can you still see it or did it move? Yep. Okay. This is how much US dollar he made at that time of investment. Here's what, how much Bitcoin he bought at that purchase. And then this is the cumulative amount of Bitcoin that he owns at those times. This is important, right? Because that interview that I told you, he was only talking about this position. And the moment I found, and by the way, these positions are all public. He publicized all these positions. So the moment I saw this, I was like, wait a second. It didn't pass the sniff test. Because I was like, wait a second, how much did he buy in like 2021? And I'm like looking over here when Bitcoin is like $50,000. And I'm like, oh, he's not passing the sniff test. Look at all these purchases. Like he's got to be way down. Like that was my theory, right? And so I was like, you know what? Let me get the real numbers and actually track all this on a spreadsheet. Let me just, I don't want to just, make a hypothesis or an estimate, right? I want the real numbers. So I put everything. I spent a whole morning on a Saturday doing this, not just his, but all the other sheets that I'm going to get into. And so when you do all the math and you take all of his purchases and you go all the way down to the bottom, all the way, by the way, $1 billion at $52,000 a Bitcoin. He chased this thing, right? So when you go all the way down to the bottom, Andy, his average entry price is $30,000 a Bitcoin. Bitcoin is trading for 16.5. He's got an ROI of negative 46% on all of his trades. And the interview that I was showing you is a month old, right? So a month ago, it was still around this price. He still had an ROI of around negative 40% even a month ago. So a month ago, he's on a podcast with 2 million subscribers, and he's telling people that it was the greatest ROI he's ever had, and he's up 65% ROI. No, he's down negative 46%. But he's only talking about this single trade right here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's dishonest. It's pure dishonesty. That's all this is. There's no other way you can phrase this other than dishonest.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did some, I don't know. I don't want to say much because I don't know the total background, but I know in the 2000s tech bubbles, there was some stuff that was potentially fraudulent.
Oh, right.
So I don't know. I don't know what, I don't know.
Well, look at, let's take his biggest trade. If he's going to talk about his single most successful trade, let's talk about his single worst trade. $1 billion at 52 grand. That 52 grand is now 16 grand. That's, what is that? A negative 75% return?
Yeah, it's down quite a bit. That's for sure.
52. So it's at 16.5, 16.55, 52. Yeah, 70%, negative 70%. That's unbelievable. That is an unbelievable negative ROI in a guy who's famous for, making a lot of money in Bitcoin. So here's the problem though, Andy. Not a problem. Actually, yeah, we'll continue on the same path. So then I thought, okay, what would have happened if he made these same exact trades on the same dates with the same investment dollars, but he put it into those other asset classes that he was crapping on earlier? So let's go to the S&P 500. That's what this sheet is. Michael
Yep.
Saylor, S&P 500. Same dates, same
Yep.
investment prices, different asset. Well, let's go down. He'd break even.
Yep.
He would have protected all of his money, his investors' money.
Well, he would have done exceptionally well if he went to the Finding Value website.
Yeah, you're right.
He got in oil and
Just put it
gas at
all
those
into
same times.
put it all into
Platinum.
SM Energy.
Yeah. Well, he
So-
couldn't because those
so then
are
I
some
thought-
monster numbers there in terms of how much he put in it. But
Well, actually, I decided to do gold, I did silver, and I did platinum, and I also did Ethereum. So
Mhm.
let's go to gold next, because again, he was crapping on gold. Well then, here's gold. Here's Michael Saylor. Here's gold. Same dates, same investment, different asset class. Turns out gold would have been negative 4%. Not bad.
well, not bad compared to minus 45 or 6 or whatever.
Not bad in a bear market, right? Not bad
Yep.
when you're in a bear market. So again, let's review. Negative 45, break even, negative 4. Okay, so then my next thing, right? Because then I thought, this isn't fair. He's a $1 billion hedge fund guy, even though it's a smaller company, smaller hedge fund, he's still a hedge fund. How many technical analysis guys has he hired? How many smart people does he know? How much insider information does he have? And I thought, you know what? It's not fair to compare him to the average Joe who's just going to dollar cost average. So I was like, let's see how negative, because if he's down negative 46% on his Bitcoin purchases, I'm thinking, man, if the average Joe was dollar cost averaging 2 years ago, they'd be down even more because they don't have that ability to do technical analysis like he does. And so I decided to make a sheet called the average Joe Bitcoin. And then if you go over here, it says, this is what happens when the average Joe dollar cost averages into Bitcoin starting the same month Michael Saylor started to shill for Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Okay. So notice the purchase dates are different. It's the first of the month every month, and it's only $1,000 because that's what the average Joe does.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. We scroll down to find the ROI. Oh, negative 37.
Yep.
Michael Saylor's down negative 46. The average Joe would be down negative 37.
Yep.
So the average Joe entry price is 26K. Michael Saylor was 30K. So what this tells me is that the average Joe dollar cost averaging beat Michael Saylor's strategy of whatever his purchase points were.
Yep.
So then I got down an even further rabbit hole. I was only expecting to make like 2 sheets, but the more data, the more conclusions I was uncovering, the more I was like, I need to keep going. So then I was like, all right, if the average Joe is only down negative 37, let's see what his S&P 500 is. Well, it's negative 1. It's almost break even.
Yep.
So again, the average Joe would have been better off investing into the S&P. What about gold? Negative 4. What about silver? Actually, I think silver was kind of bad, but that's because we had that $30 run, if you remember that.
Mhm.
Negative 11. Okay, so silver not great, but at the same time, it's not negative 37.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, all this is really saying is that I'm buying more silver right now since it's around $20, $21.
Yes, agree with that.
Yeah. If the price today is lower than the 2-year average, that's kind of a buy point for me. Okay.
Yeah.
So what about
Yeah.
platinum?
My boy Platinum.
Actually,
boy
you and Scott,
Platinum.
you and Scott were talking about that, about the moving
Yeah.
average the other day. Negative 1, about break even. And here's the thing: 1 week ago, this was actually positive because platinum was around 1050. So platinum was actually like the only one that was positive in all these asset classes a week ago. Shows the strength in platinum. And finally, I decided, you know what? Let's just look at Ethereum. There's the ETH logo. Let's be generous to Ethereum, because if there's any of these cryptos that have like at least some resemblance of a use case, it's
Mhm.
Ethereum. It's not Bitcoin, in my opinion. I don't own any. Just saying, it looks the most attractive. Negative 2%. Actually, this should be yellow. Negative 2%. Not bad. Almost break even. Not the end of the world. But the point that I'm making here is not only is Michael Saylor down a crap ton, and he's dishonest about his ROIs, he loses to the average Joe investing in any of the asset classes I talked about, who's only using a dollar cost average investment strategy. What? How do you? Who's holding this guy accountable for this dishonesty? I mean, I guess it's us right now, but we don't have a reach like he does. It's
Yeah,
not like
I
Joe
know.
Rogan's asking him these questions. It's not like London Real is asking him. Lex Fridman, who's interviewing this guy with over 1 million subscribers and going, "Hey man, I did the math. You're down negative 45%. What do you have to say about that? Hey man, you put $1 billion when Bitcoin was 52 grand. What do you think about that?"
I don't know what he'd say.
And you know what else? In that same interview, the London Real guy did ask him, "Hey, I interviewed a year ago when Bitcoin was at 50 grand. You said you're going to keep purchasing until Bitcoin hits 250,000. And then he goes, "So Michael, are you still buying now that it's at 20K?" And Michael Saylor kind of was like, "Yeah, we're still buying." Well, he's made 4 purchases this year. That's it. His last 2 purchases were 10 million and 6 million. The Bitcoin asset is lower than it's ever been in about 2 years, and he's doing nothing. He's not buying.
I don't know if he can, because he might have margin calls, because he got loans for buying a lot of this stuff. He's tapped out.
He's tapped out.
Like,
Unbelievable.
He's probably worried that he might have margin calls and stuff and have to sell whatever to cover loans that he took out.
This is
he could potentially go completely bust.
Right. And Andy, I know you appreciate this due diligence and the math here. I definitely appreciate it too, because I spent a few hours putting all this data together. And I hope people that made it this far in this video, they didn't just see it was a Bitcoin hate video and decided, I'm not going to listen. No, seriously, like, look at this. This is math. You can't escape this. I mean, Bitcoin is the worst performing asset of the assets he said were worse performing than Bitcoin. 1, he's wrong there. 2, he's not even smarter than the average Joe when it comes to buying. And because of that, I decided, Andy, here's a sheet down here called the Saylor chart. It led me to another rabbit hole where it was like, let me graph his purchase positions against the Bitcoin chart. Okay, here we are. So y-axis is the price of Bitcoin. X-axis are all the different dates since 2 years ago. If you look, oh man, can I zoom out a little bit to try to capture the whole thing?
Yeah, that's fine. Keep zooming out. You can keep going.
There you go.
Yep.
I love this chart. Okay. And here's the dates going back all the way to his first purchase point. Blue, all the blue squares are Bitcoin price at the start of every month or something like that. I charted it here. Orange is all of Michael Saylor's buy points that he's made. And then yellow is a buy point that's over $100 million. Because then I thought, okay, when is he buying? And then I thought, when did he double down? Because I don't know about you, but just using platinum and uranium as examples, or oil and gas, I always, when it's, running up, I sprinkle like very little. And when it's down, that's when I'm like, all right, time to put in an extra zero at the end of that investment, right? And that's how I do it. It's almost like when you lose 10 hands of blackjack in a row, usually on that 11th hand, the strategy is to put a bigger chip. Because what are the chances of losing 12 in a row, right? I know the odds don't work that way. It's independent probability, but still, that's how people think of it. It's the same. That's how I do it. When it's down, I put an extra zero. And so I was like, is he doing that too? And he's not. Look at this. When it's running up is when he put right there. I think this is where he put the $1 billion. I think that's the $1 billion buy. And then it came down. This was probably the best purchase he made with 100 million, because it did a run up. And then look at this. It came back, I guess, for like a back test of the uptrend, and he bought again. So like when you think of his best purchases, it's here when it found support against here, and then here when it did like a back test for another uptrend. He should have just sold everything right here somewhere, but instead he bought. And then he came down and he bought. And now look, a bulk of his purchases are right here in this area. He chased like crazy. And now that it's down here, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I
How?
think he's stretched.
Like
I think he's just doesn't have the money.
I'm not a big technical analysis guy, but this almost looks like a floor of consolidation, right?
It
Where
is.
it's gonna make,
It's
right?
an accumulation zone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna make another move, either maybe up, maybe down. I don't know. I'm not a technical analysis guy, but I have enough fundamentals to be like if this was any other chart for any other asset class that I saw value in, I'd be like, oh, I'd be buying up right here, which I have been in other asset classes.
Hmm.
And he's not. This is the like when silver was between 25 and 30, I never bought once. I was like, all right, no. I'm not buying here. This is too high. And then since it's been below 25, I've been buying. Same with platinum. Every time it's under 1,000, I buy.
That's what I do.
And
Yep.
that's the equivalent to me. That's the equivalent of this. But he's not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I actually bought a lot of platinum under nine or
oh, when it's under nine,
under
yeah,
950. It was all under there. I was like, boom, 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 boom. I was like, let's go.
right. Silver was under 20. I was like, what? Okay, let's go.
I know. I'm the
Anytime,
same way.
uranium stocks, if I see the ETF is under $70, I'm like, this is a buy point. Like, this
Yep.
is a 60 to 70. And if it dips below 60, I'm just like, oh my gosh, got to put money in.
Yeah, that's what I
He's,
do.
he's not doing that. And I think I mean, I've got
No.
a lot of cash reserves to be flexible there. I don't think he's got anything. Or he's, I don't know, Andy. I just love this. I'm glad I spent the time doing this.
I yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot more people in the markets that do closer to Michael Saylor. I think what we do is like really disciplined. And I think it's I don't know what it is though. Like I is it because we have got like an engineering background and we're just like boring or something, or like we're just too cheap? I don't know.
Well, so does he.
I know he does. That's crazy. It is true. He is an
And so
engineer.
does
I don't
what
know.
about the FTX? What about the FTX guy? Didn't he go to MIT?
I don't know.
Sam
Could
Sam
be.
Sam Bankman Sam Bankman Fried? No, it's Fried. I think he's
I mean, I've done a little bit of FOMO in my life. I'm not gonna
oh
lie.
yeah.
I've got some where I thought, oh crap, this thing's gonna keep going. But
He did. He also went to MIT.
yep,
He
maybe
got a
they forgot those ethics classes.
yeah, he graduated with a degree in physics and a minor in mathematics. So
Yep.
so you have two MIT guys that have both what's crazy, I mean the FTX thing is so crazy because it's how do you lose money in a website that literally makes money off of people being stupid?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I thought crypto
I
wasn't
don't
stupid.
no, well, I don't want to go into that. I'd rather just yeah. I mean, you're right, but all you do is you set up an infrastructure where every time someone trades crypto, you profit. Like that website only needs like what, 30 employees to just
If that.
manage the infrastructure. And
Yep.
he couldn't even do that because what happened? He got enough coins where he was like, there's a bunch of money that people own that they're storing it into my website. I'm gonna take it and make loans out against it so that I could become an overnight billionaire. Like the greed was so maybe that's it, Andy. Maybe it's because we're not as greedy. That might be it.
Mm, I don't know.
I mean, like, if you wake up happy, you go to bed happy, you're happy throughout the
It could
day.
be
You're like,
it could be a personality trait, maybe something with their personalities versus ours. I don't know.
maybe. I mean,
Their
he
name's
probably
not.
he comfortably probably had $50 million before he made any of these loans because he's like, oh, FTX, people are coming here. Maybe it's the household name. Maybe he wanted to be famous. There's greed and
Hmm.
fame. Maybe Michael Saylor's the same way, greed and fame. You want all of those things. And so you
Hmm.
take out all these loans so that you can become a billionaire, so that you can be interviewed a lot. People want to talk to you. People think you're amazing. And now all of a sudden, Sam Bankman-Fried and Michael Saylor went from like household Bitcoin names, and now I don't know about what Michael Saylor's reputation is today. Sam Bankman-Fried is essentially the most evil person in the world as far as like the crypto community is concerned. And Michael Saylor is probably neutral to most people. But if you see this chart that I have here, and if you look at his ROI, um, back here, I don't know how you can think this is an honest guy that's looking out for you. He just wants you to buy because he's bag holding 130 Bitcoin, which is like 0.5% of the total amount in circulation. He's trying to offload on it.
I mean, I'm not worried that he's down. That's not a big deal to me. It's the honesty behind it,
Me too.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
for sure.
So that's where it gets a little bit funky. And
But anyways, Andy,
he's got to sell this thing though. He's got to
yeah,
sell it because if you own it, you need more people to adopt it. Otherwise, the price won't go up. It
yep.
is a Ponzi scheme, as far as I can tell.
Right, right. And people will argue against it, but digital scarcity, sure.
Okay, wait.
But
He says that all the time. What exactly does that mean?
I I don't know. Like there's a lot of sound bites that I hear across the crypto community. Digital scarcity is one of them. Oh, final settlement. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, I've heard him say
People will
stuff
say
like this. I don't know what is, but what
final
does
settlement.
digital scarcity actually mean?
I don't.
Does that mean that like I can't create another Bitcoin? It's done. Like I can't create something that's like it. That doesn't mean it's scarce.
I think
it's only
I
scarce
think that's what
within
they're
the
trying to
Bitcoin
say.
community, perhaps. But that also means that you have greater and greater adoption to. I don't know. I don't know.
No,
Since you don't need it, there's no scarcity problem.
right. Look, Andy, I can do this, right? I can create a program that pumps out random numbers and or hashes, right? So you have A through Z and then a set of numbers attached to it. Let's say I hit the random generator and I get this 24 long word filled with numbers and letters. I'm the only one in the world with that code. That doesn't give it value. And at the end of the day, that's what Bitcoin, the digital scarcity is. You have a specific complex hash associated to your Bitcoin, and no one else can have that. But so what?
Agreed.
Who cares?
I completely agree.
You know what
I
else
still
I can
don't.
do?
I can't wrap my mind around that.
I mean,
That's what my problem is.
I've got this piece of paper here because I got a new thermostat and I need to find out how to register it online. I can make origami with this. Really crappy swan. And it could be the only piece of origami created by Andrew on eBay. And I'll put it up on eBay and no one will buy it. And I'll be like, but this is scarce. It's the only one in existence.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. If something doesn't have a fundamental value associated to it, its scarcity doesn't matter.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Hot Wheels limited edition. It's the same.
Oh yeah, that's the example you used in that
yeah,
the other debate you had. Yeah.
same thing. And nobody, people will say, but it's a permissionless thing. It's like, who cares? Doesn't matter. Does not matter.
No.
And then they say, well, you just haven't read the white paper. You gotta go read the white paper. You've read the white paper.
Yeah. Which I'd like to the Lightning Network. I heard when you were having that other debate, he talked about the Lightning Network for helping out with transactions. I read the white paper, and I also researched the Reddit forums of the guy who created one, or who was one of the people that developed the Lightning white paper. He commented about Lightning Network, and he said based off of the current design, they don't know how to support more than 100,000 channels within the Lightning Network. So when you think of like Visa having, what was it, like 700 transactions? No, it was more than that, wasn't it?
I don't know. It can do like 10,000 a second or something. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's something insane. The Lightning Network can't support anywhere near that. And the founder of Lightning went out and said, "Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. It might just self-destruct if we test that." So they didn't even stress test it. So I just want to say that's another example of a technocrat saying like, "Hey, they have a solution. It's the Lightning Network. Go read the white paper." And then if you read it with a frame of mind of let me disprove this, you come to a different conclusion than if someone reads it with the frame of mind is this is going to solve everything. So you have to go into things unbiased in order to accurately judge the white paper. And even the Lightning founders recognize their faults in their own network.
I don't, even if people were to go into it, I don't know if they really like understand what they're reading. I think that's really what the thing is. So they'll be like, oh, just go read the white paper. And you're like, okay, I read it and it sucks. And you're like, they're like, well, they don't have any argument for or against it. They don't come up and say, this is why Bitcoin will have value. period. I
Yeah.
mean, if our currency starts to have problems, what's the draw to Bitcoin? And that's where
Uh,
I come up with, like, I don't know. Oh, it's
right.
digital and it's scarce. All they do is they just say a bunch of memes, I guess, like what they've heard, like they're quoting Michael Saylor or somebody, and you're just like, well, I don't know. It's not like a logic, it's not like they went through philosophy or something and they actually like go through and step through the logic, like this is to this, this is to this has value, done. Or
Yeah. Yep.
some sort of like, you know, I don't know. There's no logic behind it. They just say crap, and it like kind of
Well,
pisses me off because then they try to say like, oh, you just don't understand. It's like, well, that's what people say when they don't understand it because they don't have a logical, coherent response, and it's very frustrating to me.
yeah,
So
likewise, especially when me and you come to conclusions based off of due diligence we do ourselves, and we
mhm.
come to a conclusion or a problem set in that uh, asset class that no one else has talked about. And I think the best example well, there's two examples we have. One that I came up with you, which is the what happens when the miners shut off due to production costs being too high. Have never heard anyone talk about that. Never. Me and you are the first to discuss that as far as I'm concerned, especially when it comes to people I've talked to who are big Bitcoin evangelists. They've never heard anyone come up with that problem. The second thing I heard you say, independent of me, was I think this is really important. What happens when people just keep dying?
And then own it. Yep.
I got to give you credit, man. I've never heard that word. I've never even heard anyone, even going back 5 years ago, go, "Hey guys, you know, as the decades go by, more and more people are going to die, and no one can access their wallets unless they have like a will that has their private addresses and their code, or what's it called, the private,
The
not the
key or
private
something.
address, but no, it's the backup key. Yeah, the backup key, the seed, the private seed
Mhm.
or the key seed or something like that. If you don't, so that's what I did, right? When I deployed in the army, I had a bunch of Bitcoin stuff. I gave my brother a key and I told him how to get to my safe, and I told him, don't go in there unless I die. And I said, when you get in there, I'm going to have instructions on how to unlock my ledger and access all of my crypto. And when that happens, you can have it. It was something like that, right? The problem is 90% of people that have crypto aren't doing that. So if I die, my Vanguard account is going to go to my wife. Why? Because she is my beneficiary. My bank accounts were joint, so that doesn't matter. But all my other accounts that I have that aren't joint, the beneficiary is clearly labeled as my wife. When you have a private Bitcoin wallet, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So
So
how do you even set
eventually,
that up?
eventually, I'll end up in dead people's accounts, and it won't be
Yes,
circulated.
yes.
Hmm.
Over
That
time,
was my thought.
yeah, it's the only logical conclusion. It might take 100 years or 200 years, but that's going to happen. It has to. I've got a friend who was mining crypto in 2012, 2013. We don't know how much he had, but unfortunately, it's a sad story, but he did die around 2016, 2015.
Hmm.
We don't know how much he had, Andy. It could have been millions and millions of dollars. And that's all gone. It's gone. It's just lost into the crypto sphere forever. No one can ever access that ever.
Well, there's people who had Bitcoin on like hard drives and they threw them away.
Right. And
So I was
or they
like,
forget their private seed to recover it, their backup seed.
yep. So I think that would eventually all happen.
Yeah. Yeah, if I have Bitcoin right now in a wallet and I die, there's no designate my wife as a beneficiary. That's not there. You can't even
Well,
program that.
what if you forget your password or key or whatever it is?
If you forget your password, then you have to go to your backup seed and use your backup seed to recover everything. But
What
if you
if
forget your
you?
password and your backup seed,
Yep.
then you're just screwed. It's all gone. You have to try to hack your own account.
But that sounds absolutely stupid. I'm sorry, it
Well,
just
not
sounds
hack,
retarded.
but
It sounds so
yeah,
stupid
it
to
does.
me. It
Yep.
sounds so dumb. Like I don't
Don't
know.
disagree.
Maybe I'm just getting older, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe when you got older, because I think you got a little bit older, and you were just like, "This is kind of weird," right?
Yeah. Like I did kind of buy into the FOMO and the tech kind of like,
Hmm.
these are people way smarter than me that are making these promises. therefore I should believe them. And I also had friends that were early adopters, so they were like making money hand over fist, and I was like, man, I got to be part of this. And it did work for a while, but then at some point I was like, when I heard people at work talking about and I've shared this before, talking about how they think Dogecoin is going to replace Bitcoin, I was like, I got to get out, man. I got to get out of this one. But no, that's and I guess to make along the same analogy, the same parallel, right? We describe what happens when you die and you're holding Bitcoin, it's gone forever. If you die and you're holding cash or stocks, it goes to your beneficiary. If you die and you're holding gold and you're safe, one of two things is going to happen. Either A, your family knows about it and they're going to open it, or B, no one knows about it. And as the years go by, it basically becomes gold under the ground all over again. And that can be rediscovered later, just like with the Spanish ships that have sunk and put all the gold on the bottom of the ocean that have been rediscovered. So gold also doesn't just get lost into nothingness. It can be rediscovered, but Bitcoin can't be rediscovered because, if you have an 8-year-old wallet with zero activity, who's to say that's just not a guy holding for the long term, or if that's a guy that's dead?
Right. Don't
know. So it's going to stay that way, and it's eventually all going to go away. Anyways, that's all I had to say, Andy. It's
okay. That sounds
wanted
good.
to share this. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. I know you really wanted to share this, so
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to share it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, that's all I've got, guys. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, Andrew. And we'll catch you later at some point. And thanks everybody for listening. If you made it to the end, good work. We'll catch you guys all later too. All right.